right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Sunday edition of the Paranormal Portal, Bedtime Stories from Beyond. I'm your host, Brent Thomas, and I hope you're having a great night. Thank you so much for joining us here. I think we are all set and ready to engage into this wonderful journey that is the Bedtime Stories from Beyond. I think I'm actually more prepped than I've been in a long time by the time I turn the stream on, but I hope you're ready because it's time for bed. All right, and we are live, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Bedtime Stories from Beyond. So it's our shorter version of the Paranormal Portal, just anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour, wherever we end up. I guess that's where we end up. But hope you guys are doing great. Not sure who's all in here yet. I Am Pam is here. I see that. Is that a new take on your name? I Am Pam. I like that. Duke is in here. Good to see you, Duke. Renee, Jess, Lewis, Aussie Tiger, Rockstar Fams is in here. Lisa Heilman, Jess again. And I think that's everybody I can see so far. So, Tesla Tech just came in. Good to see you. Josh Jacobs, welcome, brother. Good to see you as well. Pam, see if you can talk to Cha-Cha about her name, since it's no problem to change a name, I'm sure. But anyway, hope you guys are doing great, and thank you so much for being here. Mary, hi, welcome to the show. Just Brim. All right, Brimyon. All right, good to see you all, and thank you so much. I think we're just going to roll a ghost story tonight because, well, a few ghost stories. I just had a full plate yesterday. It was a really busy day. A lot of shows done. Recorded another show again today for the podcast, and so it's just like, wow. Just need to go back and just downshift a little. Not that these shows aren't also great. They are, but we've just done so many ghost stories for so long that I thought it'd be cool to do a lot of cryptid shows, and we've done a bunch of those, and they're a lot of fun. But there's just so much more material to work with when you're talking about ghost stories than any other phenomena. So it makes the show prep so much less stressful for me because there's like a gajillion stories out there. So I guess a lot of people are seeing ghosts, ladies and gentlemen, is what that means. But I got stories lined up for you. If you'd like to be a part of the show, please feel free to call in. The number is 720-923-0500. And if you're paying attention to your screen and you're thinking, hey, I'd like to call in, what was that number again? Just look up here. Just look right up there. It's a small number, but it's there. Call that number and it'll reach me. The phone lines are always open when we're live as long as we don't have a guest. So when we have a guest, it's kind of a toss-up. Some guests are good with taking calls and others aren't, but, because they just have so much material to go through, not because they don't want to say hello or whatever. But anyway, let's get into this and see what we can dig up and get into here on the portal. So the first one tonight is coming from New Jersey, and we'll see what's going on there in just a second. By the way, the new animation at the beginning, that was one that I made a while back. I made it from scratch. I was really proud of that. That was one of my first real projects in learning the 3D animation and computer graphics. So I built that, and I hope you guys enjoy it. It's a shorter loop than I would like, but I didn't want to re-render it longer because, oh my God, rendering is so basically in animation. You make models. You tell the program what to do. There's things like those particles floating around, and everything in there has to be calculated and then made into an image that works as like a film slide, so to speak, and then it plays them back, and that's what a movie is, right? But it takes forever. It takes forever for that to happen. I suppose there's a couple things I could do to maybe streamline that or speed that up a little bit, but I think that one, just that short segment that you see looping, probably took about 12 hours to render into from just the screens and build that I had into a usable MP4 file. So it takes a long time. So it's not easy to just go, hey, well, let's just do this here and make this a little longer, because then as long as it is, it would take that many more hours. So what I probably need to do if I'm going to do a bunch of this is to have a dedicated computer just for this stuff, because the workload, the stress on the system is just intense. And since I'm using one computer for pretty much everything, oh, all right. Sorry, I just got a message from Don. So I got some homework after the show. So anyway, we got to get our podcast good to go for tomorrow. But I forgot what I was talking about. I was just talking about it. I would love for that segment to be longer, but it isn't. Not that that has anything to do with the show. Not that you're even interested in that, but I thought I'd share. Just one of those things. But New Jersey is the first story tonight, and it says, while growing up, we moved around a lot. Mostly we lived in New Jersey, and during that time, many things happened in my life that no one else in my family admitted to seeing or hearing. Like at night, while in bed, I would wake up and notice that the curtains from the window were moving back and back towards the window. We're moving back towards the window. Okay, they had been off their rod again, so to speak, and they always took the rod with them on their walks. I don't understand what I'm reading. I would wake up and notice that the curtains from the window, were moving back towards the window, like they had been off their rods again, so to speak, but they always took the rod with them on their walks. Does that make sense to you guys, or am I just really missing something here? I'll keep reading. I don't know. I didn't write it. As I watched, they would move back and forth toward me and towards the window, and it really scared the crap out of me. In the same house, I would hear the liquor bottles on the cabinet downstairs clink together when no one else heard them, and they clinked all the time. Later, we moved to Delaware, Harrington, in a house there. The game was on from day one. My sister and I saw the house for the first time when we unloaded boxes from the truck, and then our family left her and I there to unpack while they got another load. And as soon as I walked into the house, I heard a voice not of this earth call my sister. She has an unusual name, so it really scared me that he knew it. She never heard it, but I did. Once, while sick with a migraine, a wispy boy stood at the end of my bed as if checking on me. I wasn't afraid of him, just startled by his appearance. These are just a few of my experiences, and maybe someday I'll tell you about the porcelain clown doll that bites. Oh, no. That's a story Don would love to hear, I think. The porcelain clown doll that bites. All right. I just wanted to look and see. Yeah, there was no other story submitted by this person, and this story is from 2008, so it's quite old. But he never did decide to tell us about that porcelain doll that bites. I thought that'd be interesting. But anyway, the next one is coming from Wisconsin. This isn't a super scary story, just kind of unusual. About 2 years ago, when I was pregnant with my daughter, we decided to spend a weekend on the Wisconsin Peninsula in Door County. As a child, my husband went to stay at a hotel called the Alpine right on the bay. And when we got there, I thought it looked like it could have been a motel from The Shining. We went, a motel, that was a hotel, wasn't it? We went in our room, and it was really outdated, but in a charming kind of way. The 13-inch TV even had a knob you had to turn without a remote, and no cable. The first evening we were there, the false ceiling tiles started bouncing around, and we joked that the place might be haunted. It sure looked like it could be. We explained it away to air pressure or vents, and the next part, though, I still can't explain. I've always been an early riser, so whenever I stay at hotels, it's really hard because I'm up about 3 hours before the normal person on vacation. And I was laying there at around 5:30 when I heard a door open. I looked up and thought it sounded like it was outside of our room. And in the round mirror of the waterfall dresser facing our bed, I could see a door open with a light on the other side of it. Well, the mirror is basically facing me, but above the bed a little bit. And I looked above myself on the wall and around the room for that matter, and there's obviously no door or any light source that it could have originated from. And the light in the doorway of the mirror opened and shut a couple of times, and then after about 30 seconds, it was gone. I could hear it opening and shutting, but like I said, it sounded like it was outside the room. It really didn't scare me. I just thought it was really neat, and I really couldn't explain it. That's weird. Perhaps that was a gateway. That was no normal mirror. It was a gateway. Indiana's next, ladies and gentlemen. I live in Canby, which is in Indiana, in one of the Heartland Crossing additions. Additions, not editions. Additions. And I've been made aware just recently of another couple that is experiencing things in their home as well. I'd really like to talk with you in detail and compare some things. My story starts from 3 years ago. I have a feeling this is a long one. Yeah, not too bad. A little long, though. We moved into our first home on May 8th of 2004. The first night that my husband and I stayed home, I experienced something that rocked my spirit, rather. It was in the master bathroom. I was in the master bathroom taking a bath, and my husband was showering in the other upstairs bathroom, and I was relaxing but something felt very weird. When I opened my eyes, there was a face in the mirror looking directly at me. That's got to be horrible. I looked and then closed my eyes, not believing what I saw, and I opened my eyes to see the face staring back at me. I sat up in the tub and prayed. I called out to my God for peace in my home, and I opened my eyes and the face was gone. Shortly thereafter, my now 3-year-old son started seeing a man named Mikey. And this was about the time that my grandmother moved in with us, and he was afraid to go upstairs because Mikey would be mean to him. Nothing that I knew of had happened since Mikey came into the picture until my husband started talking. My husband told me that on November 22nd of 2007 that he has seen a dark figure in the doorway of the master bedroom one night as we were in bed. He happened to turn over and look at the door, and there it was. It didn't have any feet, but was clearly a form. My husband said that he sat up and wiped his eyes, and he said that he had opened his eyes to focus, and it was gone. Then a week after, he said that one night that I was working late, and he had dozed off, but awakened to someone tapping him. And he said he thought it was one of our boys, so he just said, "Come on, man, get in the bed." My husband said that it was about 2 minutes later when he felt this tapping again. This time he opened his eyes and noticed both of our boys were in the bed with him. So he turned over to see who was tapping him, and there was no one there. On December 28th of 2007, my oldest son and myself were in the bed. I was asleep and he was watching Nick at Night, and when I was awakened by my son screaming at the top of his lungs and trying to get underneath me. This alarmed me, and I jumped up screaming, "What's wrong?" He was shaking and crying, saying that I saw a man. I asked him what he looked like, and my son said that he could only see his white hair and that his arms were open wide, as to welcome a hug or something. I prayed out loud and held my son until he fell asleep. I told my husband about this, and once again he tells me of other things that have happened. On New Year's Eve, once again, my husband and my 3-year-old were in our bed. My husband dozed off and was awakened by our son tapping him and pointing to the rocking chair in the room near the window. My son said, "Daddy, who's that man?" My husband says, "What man?" And my son says, "That man right there, sitting right there." My husband said, "What is the man doing?" And my husband said that my son gestured that the man was smiling and shaking his head at him. My husband told me that he told my 3-year-old not to pay attention to him and he will go away. On January 5th of 2008, around the time my grandmother had mentioned to my husband that we need to get that evil spirit out of our house. She also said that she doesn't sleep very well. As for myself, I'm very sensitive to my surroundings, and I feel things when they come around me, and I feel things when they're watching me. I close my bathroom door every night before I go to sleep because I get a vibe that it's disturbing when I don't. My bathroom and closet is always cold. I've experienced flashing lights at night, giving off a green glow almost, and I've heard, as well as my husband and older son we hear walking in the attic. At first we thought that the house was just settling and paid no attention until it started moving our bed around to escape the noise, and each time the noise would seem as though it was right above the new area we moved our bed. How big is that bedroom? I mean, if it's a huge room, then maybe that would make a difference, but if there's walking sounds in your room, I don't think moving your bed to a different corner is going to matter. But just recently, on January 22nd, 2008, I was sleeping on the couch and I had my head covered with the cover when I felt something tap me on the side. Immediately, I got up and went to bed with my husband, and later that morning, I wasn't quite asleep and I was just waking up for work and heard a man's voice say, "Tausha." I sat straight up and looked at my husband, and he was still asleep, as well as everyone else. And funny thing, our oldest daughter has never experienced anything, or she just hasn't spoke about it yet. I've asked for help with this matter, and help is on the way. I don't know what that means, but maybe they got someone coming to help them with the haunting. I don't think any of that sounds bad, though. It just sounds like there's a presence. Again, I don't know how the grandmother arrived at the evil spirit thing. But then again, some people's paradigms say that if you see a ghost, it's an evil ghost, because if it was really a person, it would be in heaven. I mean, that's the way some people view this stuff. And I understand their thought process on that, but I just don't really think that it's quite that simple. I think that people can choose, and perhaps this was a great grandfather or something stopping in, or some relative, ancestor, so to speak. I don't know. And maybe it was just a benign presence. That house was special to the person, so I don't know how they jumped to the evil part, but I didn't see anything in that story that I felt was evil. But what do you do? No cha-cha tonight. I've said it twice now. I guess she isn't in here. But let's continue on our journey. This one has to do with a Ouija board. Again, for the record, I don't believe Ouija boards are evil. I really don't. I don't think there's anything about them that inherently makes them evil, but I think use or misuse or improper use, which is misuse, but can cause problems. Now, the problem that I think, and I've said this many times, so please forgive me if it's redundant, but the problem with the Ouija board is it's a blind channel. It's just, is there anyone there that wants to speak to us? Well, by speaking to you through a Ouija board, you are using yourself, your body energy, and your connection to the board as the channel. So by virtue of using it, you are inviting something in. And that's the blind channel part. So you don't know what that something is, but if there is something really negative and dark, you've just invited it in, and that's the problem with Ouija boards. Now, there is methodologies and ways to prep your environment prior to using them that should negate the negative or evil presences and, help you have a positive experience if you're determined to use it. And I would just suggest, I'm not going to teach people about it. That's not what the show is about. But if you're interested in using it, do some research, understand how it works, how it can work, the processes you would need to accomplish in order to use something like that, in a careful way or a prepared way. Just my 2 cents. But just as it is, like the one hanging on the wall, that's just essentially it's just a piece of cardboard pressed with a picture. It's no more dangerous than the welcome mat at a doorway. It's just through the use and through the improper closings and letting dark things through it can create a portal type to occur. That's my 2 cents. Agree with it or disagree with it, that's fine. I mean, I don't claim to be the expert, but I am an enthusiast. I've really researched a lot about Ouija boards, and that's my takeaway on it. But certainly come to your own conclusions. If you're in doubt, don't touch them. Don't touch them. There's just no need to. So let's see what this Ouija board story is all about. This took place in the middle part of Michigan. The house was large with a huge basement. In the basement was 3 rooms. However, one was made into 2 rooms. There were 2 windows in this basement, none that would open, or none that could be opened, just for light and to be able to get through. For the light to be able to get through. Okay, sorry, I kind of misread that. Near the stairway was the room that was divided, and half was the laundry room and the other half was storage, where glass beer bottles and soda bottles sat in cases to be used at a later date. Other things was in that room just as storage area. The room that Jill and I and the other girls went to was in the center of the basement, no windows near us, just a big room that was to be used as for exercise equipment. If we walked far enough into the large room, we came to a smaller room where there was one window, and the other window was in the laundry room. I was babysitting for this young lady, Jill. She was around 10. I was nearly 18, and Jill told me that her friends would go into the basement and play with this really neat game with this board that is supposed to spell out the answer to questions. I asked her, does it really work? And she said, if no one cheats, it does. And I said, wow, maybe I would like to play it sometime. So she called up Carol and asked if she could spend the night, and her mom could bring her over. And pretty soon, here came Carol, ready for the night. Now I'm watching 2 girls about the same age, so the 3 of us went into the basement with the Ouija board. Oh, no. And we sat down, lit a candle, and Jill told me to put my fingers only on the little piece that would spell the words. And soon as I did that, the candle went out, and we could feel wind in there, but where it came from, we didn't know. We had to relight the candle 6 times before it stayed lit. Should have known something was wrong then, but we went and played the game, and well, nothing happened, but us telling each other we were cheating, moving the piece around to spell out the answers. And finally I said, you 2 can play, but not me. I went upstairs, and soon they did too. Several days went by. I went back to babysit, and we called Carol up and played the Ouija board several more times till we got into the discussions. Someone was cheating and gave up. The 3rd time, we thought it would be nice if Tammy came over. After all, she just lost her baby brother from a car accident. Oh, that's so tragic. And he was 3. And she came over and we thought we could ask the Ouija board if her baby brother made it to the other side okay. We should not have done that. By the time we sat in a circle with the candle lit, and Jill asked more friends to come over, there was about 6 of us then, and the candle we could not keep lit. The wind we could feel in the room, but we didn't know where it came from. And then, while my fingers are on that little piece, we asked, is Tammy's brother on the other side now? We heard something hitting the wall in the other dark room from us. It did that several times, and we should have been frightened then. But kids will be kids, and I guess Tammy asked, can you give me a sign my brother is on the other side? Again, we heard noises from the other dark room, and our candle went out, making it totally black in the 2 rooms. I seen lights bouncing off the walls, and no matter how much we tried to light the candle, we just couldn't. Something kept us from doing it. Jill asked the board who or what was making the lights bounce around the room. And then we heard the glass bottles being slammed against the wall in the spare room behind us. And that's when we got frightened. We could not see the stairway in the dark, and we were scared, and more bottles being smashed up against the cement walls, but not in the storage room they were in, the room we are in. Tammy said she could hear her brother's voice, and I nor anyone else could hear it, however. Then I said something just flew past my face. Kind of felt like a spider web being dropped down on me, or a net of some kind. And I'm fighting to try to get out of it, and it seems to capture me in its grip. We can't see, it's so dark, and one of the gals screamed, and they got hit by the bottle, and we could hear it being smashed to the floor. We're all screaming now, stop this. We kept going on, the lights bouncing around, the bottles being broken, sounds coming from the other dark room sounded like moaning to me, and the girls are crying and screaming, and I am in there with them. And we had to find the stairway in the dark, and yet I didn't want to let the girls be away from me. So we held hands, and I told them, do not let go of anyone till we find the stairway. We finally found it by touching the walls around us. Odd, however, as being in the dark, scary basement of the house, sometimes the walls felt like on fire, and other times just plain cold, like in a freezer. We made it to the stairs okay, and into the other part of the house, far from the stairway that went down to the stairs. Upstairs, all seemed just fine. The lights were on, the music from the radio still on, and nothing out of place. Then we got up the stairs, and Tammy had a cut on her arm, I guess from flying glass from the bottles being broken, but Carol was the one that I couldn't believe. Her clothes were like shredded. It looked like someone took scissors and just cut them up. Yet she said she didn't feel anything on her. When Jill's mom came home, she asked what happened, and we told her. She didn't believe us and was upset, and she told us then we have to go down in the basement and clean up the mess. We told her we would, but she was going too. We got down the stairs, and there was broken bottles everywhere, some sticky stuff on the walls, and Jill was the only one that nothing happened to, nor did she feel anything touch her. All she saw was the lights bouncing around the room. I went to Jill's mom's house a lot, and when she asked me to go into the basement to get something, I was scared. But I did as she asked, and I always felt something was down there watching me. Then my friend told me for a long time she has felt that too, and usually don't do her laundry until someone is home and in the basement as well. I often would stay the night at this house, and I was afraid to get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, and I always felt that something was there watching me. My friend moved from that home long ago, and I wonder if anyone else who has ever lived there experienced anything odd about it. But now that the Ouija board was taken out and burnt by her mom, maybe whatever came out of it was burnt in hell. Anyone want to play with Ouija boards? All I can say is danger is just waiting to happen. Ouija boards. Ooh, spooky stuff. I don't know. It could be a lot of embellishment. Could be creative writing. Could be real. I don't know. I can't vouch for many of these stories as far as their authenticity, but other than the plethora of activity, which seems to be just off the charts, I don't know. That seems like a lot of activity just for, one haunting experience. But I guess it's not impossible. It's just very unlikely that all of that stuff would have been happening at the same time. I mean, that sounds like Hollywood kind of haunting stuff. And not that it never happens that way, but it's very rare. Very, very rare. Usually it's just one thing, like, knocks on the walls or footsteps, or maybe a door will shut. You'll feel a cold chill, but not generally horror movie kind of stuff. That's pretty much incredibly rare. But I guess it can happen. Let's see how we doing. We got a lot of people in here tonight. So glad everybody's in here. Great to see you all. Oh, Cha-Cha made it. The party can continue. I am Pam, Aussie Tiger. Let me see if I can just go through the list and see who's all here. Aussie Tiger, Bama BF, Behind the Coil. Good to see you. I don't remember that name before, but welcome to the show. Brian Duke Sullivan is in here. Cha-Cha's in here. Chris Guy, D Swagger, DH, Digger Dog, Elaine Clifford, I am Pam, Jessica, Lewis, Renee, and William Bennett. Well, welcome everybody, and there's more, obviously, as there's nearly 50 people in here right now, but that's just the people that are chatting. So welcome everybody, though. Thank you so much for being here and supporting what we're doing here on the portal. We truly appreciate it. Let's get to the next one, and this one's coming from Michigan. And we're doing ghost stories tonight, ladies and gentlemen, if you're just joining us. Let's see what's going on in Michigan. In 1991, my parents decided to move our family across the country to northern Michigan town. It was very small, and my dad claims he found the perfect home for us to live in. It was from the early 1900s. It was a Victorian home. And the previous owners did some remodeling to the home, in addition to the back of the house that held the new kitchen and the greenhouse. Oh, that's cool. I always thought it'd be neat to have a house with a greenhouse. I've always been enamored with that idea. And a 5-star stall garage was also added to the home. Man. With the U-Haul and our station wagon packed, we headed from California to Michigan. The drive was long, and being 7 years old with 3 other siblings in the car, we drove my mom crazy, and we turned onto our road and noticed that all the houses seemed really old. There were enormous oak trees lining the road, and our house was the biggest one on the whole street and looked like the most haunted. The house was pale yellow with white shutters. The house had a huge wraparound porch, bay windows, and it was really, really big. The price was expensive, but it was the perfect size for our family of 6. My older brother bolted from the car first, running up to the front steps and yelling for someone to get the key to open the door. I grabbed the keys from my dad and we ran for the house. And when the front door opened, we entered the foyer, which was a 2-story room that overlooked the massive wooden staircase leading up to the 2nd floor. The 4 of us kids darted up the stairs to claim the best bedroom, and after we chose our rooms, the moving crew started taking our things to our rooms. The first week we unpacked our belongings, the house was starting to look more like it was our house, with our furniture in it and decorations, and after everything was unpacked is when I started to hear noises. My parents just passed them off as it being an old house, just settling. Our house in California was newer, so there wasn't the usual old house noises. The 3rd week there, I was awoken to a loud thud coming from the hallway just outside of my bedroom. I got out of bed to see what it was, only I didn't find anything. I asked my brothers the next day if they had heard anything, but they hadn't. The following night, I was awakened out of a dead sleep after my blankets were ripped off my bed. I yelled for my parents, who came rushing in and passed it off as a bad dream. Again, my brothers, whose ages are 5, 9, and 13, didn't hear anything. A month had passed without any unusual experiences, and then at breakfast, my 13-year-old brother claims that he saw a woman wearing a red blazer and glasses sitting in his room during the night. He flipped on the lamp and she vanished. My parents told him to stop watching TV at night, and a week later I experienced the very same thing. The same woman was sitting on the edge of my bed, humming a lullaby. Sounds sweet. My parents didn't believe any of this and claimed that we were making things up because we missed our friends and wanted attention. Oh, sometimes parents, come on. My mother finally believed us when she walked out of the laundry room and bumped into a man in the hallway. These things became normal for us through the next couple of years. And when I was 12, we had a birthday party for my brother, and their friends all refused to come over due to the haunted house. And after I witnessed a man walk through a door, and things started to get out of hand. My mom wanted clues? Wanted clues. Okay, I don't know what that means. My older brother, who is now 18, had moved out of the house to go to college, and his girlfriend came to visit over a break, and his girlfriend went to use the bathroom, and when we heard a loud scream, we knew something happened. She came out and said that someone had slapped her across the face. A woman in a red blazer. She didn't know who it was, but she was in the bathroom when she went in there. After doing research, we found out that the family who built the house had 4 boys. The parents and the children were in some sort of accident, and all 4 boys were killed. Oh, that's so tragic. Later on, the father died in a tragic accident, and the mother, after losing everyone, just took her own life. We've come to believe that the reason why the woman is always in us kids' room humming lullabies or watching over us is due to the fact that she's watching out for her boys. The ghosts in our home have come to be a part of us. They are normal. And knowing their names anytime we see them, which is really quite often, we call them by name. They never respond, but they never harm us. We do hold the best Halloween parties, though. Well, that stands to reason, I guess, that she would be lingering. That's such a horrible thing to have to endure. I can see how that would just break your spirit. Oh, that poor woman. But and it's kind of neat that they took that situation and, just consider it part of their lives. There's some people are torn about this. We have a good friend, Jeffrey Seelman, who's a spiritualist and an exorcist, and he's like, get them out. They don't belong. They're not supposed to be here. This is not how it's supposed to work. If you got spirits hanging around, get them out. Would you let your friend come and just watch you day and night? And, I understand what he's saying, but at the same time, maybe they're just not ready to go. Maybe they're not ready to move on. And if they're not being harmful or causing real problems, although the slapping the girlfriend's a little aggressive. I don't know what that's all about, but maybe the girlfriend wasn't as wonderful a person. Who knows? But very, very wild. Cool story, though. I kind of like that one. Nothing too over the top, just continued activity. It's neat that they were able to know the name. However, they only really mentioned the woman, but they mentioned ghosts and knowing their names. So I don't know what's the story with the other ghosts, but no idea. All right, the next one is coming from Pennsylvania. I believe that's where Mr. Merkel is. He was just at the Tony Merkel from the Confessionals podcast was just over at Penhurst for the convention going on over there. I don't know. I haven't had a chance to hear from him. I hope it went well. He did some video streams as he was over there, and it looked like everything was pretty cool. It looked like it was pretty hot, though. It's some balmy weather over there for sure. So this one's coming from Pennsylvania. I ruled out the possibility of ghosts when I was younger, but when I grew up and the same events have been happening for the past 8 years of my life, I finally became a believer. I started to realize the presence of ghosts, spirits, or some energy in my life. Some background information is needed to really understand how these hauntings in my life. I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania close to Allentown. I lived in a normal-sized townhouse, and my parents and 2 siblings, and our pet dog, Abby. My grandparents on my mom's side owned a farm about 15 minutes away from our house. We'd go there all the time to visit Nami and Pop-Pop. Okay. The farm was a great place for me as a kid growing up, and I could go outside and find stuff to do and all day long, and I had a very big imagination. So many times over the summer, we would spend the day out in the barns playing, and there were 3 barns total on the farm, and one was home to the 20-some pigs and 1,000-plus chickens, and the other for equipment, and the herd of cattle, and the 3 horses, and the last of which was devoted to hay storage for all the animals. My cousin, siblings, and I spent some time shelling cobs of corn for the chickens, hand-feeding the cows hay off the barn floor, and giving oats and sugar cubes to the horses. After getting bored of feeding the animals, we would play in the hay barn, jumping from the top of the stack into the soft pile of hay below. We also made hay forts or houses out of the hay and hay bales, and we would play house and such, and the farm dog Holly would always be out there with us. Occasionally our pop-pop would come and check up on us, and we oftentimes got yelled at for making the walls of our forts higher than our heads because he didn't want us getting hurt, and he always had us in mind. Then an unfortunate event happened when I was in the 4th grade. I got taken out of school to learn that my pop-pop had died in the barn fire while he was trying to save some possessions that were in the hay barn while it was burning, and the trusses of the pole barn burnt through and collapsed on him, not allowing him to escape. This was a huge turning point in my life because now there was a farm that had to be attended to, and my grandfather who did it for a living was no longer around. My dad stepped in and took care of the daily chores, 2 hours before work every morning and 2 hours after work, adding to his already labor-intensive 8-hour shift as a maintenance worker at a local area hospital. Slowly, changes came about the farm, taking care of 1,000-plus chickens and cleaning that many eggs a day was a huge commitment, so there were the first things to be sold. We kept about 50 chickens to sustain the family's need for eggs, and the pigs were soon sold to market and some butchered for meat for the freezer. The horses and cows stayed because they're not as labor intensive, and for 2 years, every morning and night, my dad feed the animals and took care of the operations of a working farm. It was getting too hard not living on the farm in case of emergencies with the animals, too many calls in the middle of the night where the cows got on or to the road. So the summer of 5th grade, we packed up our townhouse and moved to the farm. My siblings and I entered a new school at the end of August and fit in well, and with the new environment, now living on the farm, everyone had chores greater than mowing the lawn and taking the garbage to the curb. Every morning there were animals for each of us to feed before we went to school. Also in the winter months, each of us had to bring in a load of wood for the furnace to heat the house. I started to become accustomed to waking up at 5:30 to do chores before school. The farm life was getting to become natural for me. Being the only boy in the family, I had a job with all the heavy lifting, which was transporting hay bales from the newly constructed hay barn to the cow barn where the horses also had their stalls, and every day I would load up a wagon with 6 bales and made 4 trips to feed all the steers, cows, and horses. Unstacking hay bales was a chore done twice a day. I became proficient at climbing the stack and throwing hay bales off the top so as not to create a deadly avalanche of 60-pound hay bales. And every time I was done throwing down hay, I made sure it was safe to climb down to transport the bales, and also that it would be safe the next morning to climb back up there. Several times I would notice that only one bale was out of place off the top of the pile, and I thought nothing of it and picked it up and thought of it as one less that I had to throw down. One particular day, I feed the animals early in the afternoon because I had an away sporting event, which I would not be home until late. I opened up the doors to the barn, and I heard a muffled voice. I looked around and saw nothing. And while I continued to move the hay, I kept hearing the same sound. I still disregarded it and thought it was just in my head. And a couple of weeks had gone by, and I continued seeing misplaced bales, but had not heard the strange noise. Then on a Friday, I had the day off of school, and I fed the animals later in the morning, and after opening the doors to the barn, I heard that same noise that I did a couple of weeks ago, and I felt a strong energy. The hair on the arms and my arms and legs stood on end, and I was freaked out but continued with my chores. I had not any encounters with this energy or whatever it was for the next several years. My chore was still feeding the cows and horses, but now we had a large round bales, and they were easier to make over the summertime and easier to store and easier to feed, so naturally we bought new equipment to handle these larger bales, and each round bale weighed about half a ton and would feed the herd for the day. So I only had to feed once a day now, which was great. Time saver, not to mention I could use a tractor. Now with the large round bales, I also noticed that some were being knocked off the top of the stack. And this is really dangerous because 1,000 pounds is falling from about 15 feet up. I never witnessed a bale being knocked over, but even the bales set upright on the ground would be knocked over the next day, which was really pretty suspicious. I considered that these hay bales were not movable by a person. It would take a large group effort to put the bale on its side. On a Sunday morning in mid-September, I went out to feed and got the same feeling I had several years ago and heard that same noise. And this time, I knew it was no joke. I turned off the tractor and ran inside for the camera, and I took several pictures of the barn. I consistently came up with a bleached-out spot in a shot on the digital camera. Once I didn't feel the presence of that energy, I took several photos again, and nothing was wrong with the photos. To this day, I can't explain what has happened, but I think that it is the spirit or energy of my pop-pop who died in that same place where the new hay barn was constructed. So there you have it. Pop-pop's helping with the chores. That's pretty cool. There is a couple pictures here that the person took. Oh, wow. Okay. So I'm going to show these to you guys, and you guys can see what I'm seeing here. They're not extraordinarily big, but there is truly an odd anomaly on this picture. So this is the photo, and this is the area that I think there's no real reason for that. And I do photography as well. I've been to college for photography, and I can tell you that this is not a normal lens flare. If there was a mist or if it was cold and somebody's breath, maybe that could be an account of what this is. But if it is just a standard shot and it's a warm day, then I don't know what this would be. Here's another one without it. So here's the anomaly, and here's without the anomaly. So clearly, it does appear that something's going on there. And if these huge bales are being knocked over, that could account for it, I guess. But very cool. I think those are really neat. I don't know what you guys think, but I think they're very well could be Pop hanging around doing his chores, or at least helping. So that's one of them. It'd be neat if all these came with pictures, but they don't always do that. So got time for a couple more, as long as they're not too long. So maybe one or two. Let's see what happens here. This next one's Indiana. It says, one day I came home off the bus and went straight into the kitchen to have a snack. And walking out of the kitchen, I felt the burning sensation on my back. I had my sister look at it, and there were 3 little scratch marks on my back. There was no way that it could have been my bra, because it makes an X shape on my back, and the scratches were in the corner of my back. I got pictures of it on my sister's cell phone, but I don't know how to load them onto the computer, but it really hurt badly. And I think the only reason it didn't break the skin was because I was wearing 2 shirts, and one of them was a sweater. Another time I had gone to the graveyard to visit my dad's parents, and when we left, I was being stupid and yelling, "Hey, follow me home, ghosts, follow me home." Oh no. Don't taunt the dead. Apparently something did, and that night I was going to take a shower, but I had to hurry because I was already about 12:30, and I get the feeling that somebody is watching me while I'm in the shower, so I leave the curtain halfway open and peek out every couple minutes, and a bit later I was peeking out of the shower curtain again because I heard a noise. On the mirror was a face print, like someone had drawn a face on the fogged up mirror. I was angry looking, and it was angry looking rather, and it wasn't there the first couple of times that I peeked out of the shower. My family goes to bed at around 11 or so, and unless they had moved faster than my head could shift to draw that face so perfectly and close the door without me catching them, it was probably something paranormal. Our house is haunted anyway, and if nothing followed me home, then it had to have been something in my house. And it could be. I don't know. No pictures, though, ladies and gentlemen, so we don't know. This one sounds funny. I want to read this one just because it sounds funny. About 2 years ago, this one's coming from Rhode Island. Oh, God, this is kind of long. This will be the last one for tonight. About 2 years ago, I was a beloved cat named Big Mama passed away. She belonged to my aunt and 2 cousins, but was loved by the whole family. She was the sweetest cat I've ever encountered. And before I tell the supernatural part of the story, I feel I have to tell you how amazing Mama was. Originally, when I was about 7, my aunt's brother had to get rid of her because she couldn't take care of it in his new home he was moving into. So she took her in and changed her name from Chewie, short for Chewbacca, or however you spell that Star Wars thing, to Big Mama, and brought home the most beautiful cat in the world. She's also a calico cat, colored orange, brown, and white and black, and she was really fluffy, and she would do all sorts of tricks to make you laugh and loved to cuddle and be petted. A few years after, my cousin wanted another cat, which she brought home. Her name was Tweety, and she was black, slinky, and had an attitude problem, and she was always hissing and clawing at everyone, and Big Mama was scared of her, and I didn't blame her. She scared me too. Eventually, the two cats got used to each other, and a couple of times we'd catch them cuddling. And years later, when Tweety would give birth to her first litter of kittens, Big Mama would watch the birth and then come meowing to my aunt to alert her the kittens were here. As the kittens got older, Big Mama assisted Tweety in mothering, and she'd play with the kittens and not make a peep when they would crawl all over her. Big Mama started to get sick and turned out to be a kidney stone, and she had trouble going to the bathroom, and when she did, she would bleed. The doctors fixed her up, and slowly she began to heal, and she started to gain weight after that, and we would always joke about how her name fit her perfectly because she was a fat kitty. She loved to roll on her back and have her tummy rubbed, and making her look like a round fur ball. It was so cute, and she was so cute. So about 2 years after her surgery, Big Mama started losing all her weight and really wouldn't eat too much, and she didn't even play anymore. She would just lounge around the house, and then one day, she was gone. I remember it was in the summer in August, and my aunt found her behind the TV or under the bed, I forget which, and 2 days after her death, still not believing she was gone, I decided to pay my cousin a visit after giving her some space to grieve, and we were sitting in her sister's room reminiscing about Big Mama and how much we already missed her. My cousin told me later that night, on the day that she died, she was laying in bed, not able to sleep, still sad over Big Mama's death, and all of a sudden she felt her walking on her bed and on her legs just like she used to do when she was alive, and wanted to cuddle next to you to sleep. My cousin said she was freaked out to see the blankets move and feel her paws, but it was comforting. I was thinking about this when all of a sudden I heard Big Mama jump off the kitchen table like she used to do all the time. My heart beat a million miles an hour, and I looked at my cousin, who grinned at me. "See? She came to visit," she said. I was amazed and comforted because it was a bittersweet day. I just found out my dad had cancer, and it was raining that day, but the sun was also shining, and it was a beautiful sight. And it was almost as if Big Mama came to say that she was okay and that everything would be all right. That night I cried and realized she was in heaven where she belonged, and we haven't gotten any more visits from her since that day, but I know she's still here playing and sleeping and waiting to have her tummy rubbed. Rest in peace, Big Mama. I love you and miss you. XOXO. So I guess that's the show, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I know I have. I love doing the portal. So if you are not already, please subscribe, hit that bell, and make sure to check out our podcast. It'll be released Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, wherever you find podcasts. So if you're on iHeart, iTunes, Pandora, Spotify, Google Play, about a jillion other ones, it's out there, and I hope you guys will help support that effort because we're really having a good time with it. And sorry, it's hard for me doing these shows to keep an eye on the chat. So if you've said hello, I do apologize, but hello to you all, and thank you so much for being here and making my night magical. Bigfoot in Germany, good to see you. Beth Fierce, good to see you. Diane, anyone else? Okay. If I missed your name or whatever, I do apologize. But Bigfoot Odyssey's in here. Hi, Carrie. Good to see you, brother. Thanks for stopping in as well. So I guess that's going to wrap it up. Josh, thank you. I hope you guys have a great night. Thank you so much for being here. I'll be back tomorrow night with another version or episode of the Bedtime Stories. So I hope you'll join me then. Always 7 days a week, 7 p.m. Pacific time. I'm doing a live show for the portal. So check it out. And, if you've got an encounter of your own, an experience you've had and would love to share it, I'd love to hear it. Definitely email it to paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. Check out our shirts and mugs and stuff that are available in the description. You'll find them. That's a Teespring link in our show description, and it really goes a long way into helping support what we're doing and helping us grow the portal. Hopefully we'll make it bigger, better, and greater. So your contributions definitely make all of that possible. So thank you all, and have a wonderful night. Have a great Monday. I know it's Monday, and generally Mondays suck, but just go into it with good thoughts and good vibes, and you never know, maybe it'll be a great day. So If not, at least you won't be dreading it. So love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. Have a wonderful night, everybody, and sweet dreams.